This video is a recording of the first of 2 follow-up sessions in the PD2Practice system. It was recorded in Pflugerville ISD in Texas, so we're really grateful for them to open up their doors for us to record this. The PD2Practice system is a feature that is within the online library of professional development. This system helps to ensure that every teacher is applying what they learn in our online professional learning into classroom practice, and it is resulting in growth in student outcomes. We hope this video gives you a good idea of what to expect in the first follow-up session of the PD2Practice system. We will be posting videos of the second follow-up as well. Now, keep in mind that there are many different ways to have these meetings, but this video is just one way to do it. For the sake of keeping it very short, we have cut out a lot of the very rich conversation that is taking place in the meeting, just so that you can see how the leader is leading these conversations. So it's important to remember that these follow-up sessions can be led by a principal or a campus administrator in a wider setting in the campus, or it can be led by a teacher leader in a PLC setting. So we hope this video gives you a good idea of what these sessions look like.
Well, thank you for coming today. I know how important your time is, so I'm really excited to be here today with all of you, our team, to talk about tiering and compacting. I know that we all had an opportunity to take that course, and I personally thought there was a lot of great information in there that can help us meet the needs of our students in the classroom at different levels, because we know they're not all operating at the same level. So we're going to look at that today, and this is the first of 2 follow-up meetings. So at this meeting, we're just going to talk more about what we learned, what we saw, and start formulating our plan to use some of this information in the classroom. And then between the meetings, you're going to work on a lesson, teach the lesson using these strategies, and then when we come back for our second follow-up meeting, then we'll be able to debrief and go forward. Do we want to continue to use the strategy? Do we want to change it? Do we want to add more resources, or all the things that we need to think about when we're planning for our students? So we're going to just go through this process together, and then you'll be able to use one or more of the tools when you're planning your lesson. Teachers, you need to be sure to log into your teacher dashboard and open it up and scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you're going to see some questions that we're going to be answering throughout the session. So be sure you have that up and ready to go, and we'll get started. So let's just start out just very simply talking about, what did you learn? What did you learn in that lesson? What were the ahas? What did you think, wow, this is really cool? So we'll start with you, Shirley. We'll just kind of go around the room.
Okay. One of the biggest things that I learned was that tiering isn't hard if you are beginning with the highest learner in mind, and I really like that a lot.
Well, kind of what everyone said, but what I liked about what Lisa said in the video was, it may take you a little bit of time at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's like seconds. It was so reassuring.
Yeah.
And you hear like 30 seconds just of bam, 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 and you can figure out where your tiers are, and it becomes more of a habit than, a chore.
Yeah, so that's kind of your mindset. So you're just thinking every lesson you plan, you're starting with the top and then working down. Okay, great. Well, what I'd like for you to do, you all have this question on your dashboard. I want you to write your personal answer to that question. What did you learn in this course?
So what strategies did I learn in this session?
Yeah, strategies. It could be strategies or just information that you learned. Okay, so this next question is not one you're going to type the answer to. We're just going to talk about it. And this is just kind of popcorn out your answers. What benefits do you see for your students if you do tiering or compacting in the classroom? What benefits do you see?
I see all students being able to get exactly what they need for a memory lesson.
Okay. Anybody else?
It also helps you plan for the end in mind, and when that student is ready for more, you have something in place to be able to give the student what they need when they need it,
Right.
rather than, oh, it's okay to go ahead and read that book. Well, why do you want to read that book, and how does it fit in
Yeah.
with the learning expectation that we have right now?
Yeah. So you can expand on what they, even a student, and not to level kids, but say your average student, they may be really interested in something and they're going way beyond what they would have normally if the opportunity's there. So we're providing that opportunity. So I think that's a great point. Anybody else? I mean, you don't all have to answer, but but just what, we want to make sure that if we're going to change the way we instruct our students, that's going to be beneficial to them, and we're going to see growth, extra growth, especially with our GT students, because, a lot of times we assume, okay, they can do the grade level work, but that's not what we want for them. We want them to be able to grow a year at whatever level they are at the GT level. They still need to grow a year during their 4th grade year or their 5th grade year or whatever. So I think it's important for us to think about what benefits this would have for our students, and any other course that we're looking at. How's it going to benefit our students? So that's important. So as we're thinking about doing the tiering and compacting, what critical issues do you foresee that would affect using tiering or compacting? When you think about your students in your classrooms, what issues would you face that would cause a problem when you think about tiering?
I think from subject to subject, if you're like a self-contained teacher, let's say, and from subject to subject, figuring out which students fall into which tier and making sure that it's fluid enough that students can move between the different tiers, depending on subject, depending on topic within a certain subject, and understanding that, like for math example, that their readiness for the geometry skills may be at a different level than their readiness for computation, and being flexible enough to move around within that.
Okay, so how would you overcome that?
I think pre-assessment would be really important, and figuring out how to pre-assess students and find the time and making that a priority going into each unit.
Okay, so kind of really finding out where they are before you even begin to plan what you're going to do. Okay, what other obstacles? I mean, think about your administration, your resources. Are there any other obstacles that you might have?
Well, and I would also think sometimes getting into the pitfall of, I know who my groups are, and they're
Right.
static, and that they become static.
Yes.
And I don't constantly go back to what is the data telling me about where the student needs to be given the concept or the subject area.
And so, as we think about doing our lessons in this style, or using this strategy, I guess I want to say, we do need to think about those things. And as a team, we'll want to sit down, we may just, meet in the hall or whatever and share ideas, because in the beginning, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be harder, but like you said, it's going to get easier the more we do it. So, but I mean, we have to think about those obstacles. So that's actually question number 6 in your list of questions. So if you scroll down to question number 6 and think specifically about your school and your students, what obstacles do you see and how might you overcome those? We've kind of looked at this course, and it does contain tiering and compacting, which are both huge strategies to use. I mean, they're different. You can use them together, but I think for us to get started, we really kind of need to narrow our focus. And I'm sure y'all all have a favorite just from watching the course and experience that you've had as a teacher. So I'm going to ask you to take a vote. How many of you would commit to doing a lesson using tiering versus compacting? So how many would do tiering? Raise your hands if you'd like to do tiering. Okay. How about compacting? All right. We're going to do compacting, but I think if we've got the majority that would want to start with tiering. So Do y'all agree? Would you be willing to do that? Okay, great. And I promise we'll get to compacting later. Because, I mean, they're both fabulous strategies to use. But, you know, I think if we get too much going on, then we'll kind of go crazy. And I think we can also bounce ideas off each other if we stick to one to get started. So that's question number 4 on your dashboard. So if you'll look at question number 4 and put your answer down, that you've all agreed that we're going to do tiering as a team. So, you know, now that we've got our mindset that we're going to focus on tiering, let's think about what's coming up in our curriculum. What are some ideas that are coming up in our curriculum that might lend themselves to tiering? Can you think of a topic that we might use to tier a lesson?
Well, we're in the 2nd grade, and we're wanting to ensure that that we find more GT learners, and so we're going to try to do some planned experiences for our students. So we're trying to work on that right now.
So in your handout on page 2, Lisa gave us a whole list of strategies within the strategy of tiering. In other words, ways that you can tier. And I thought, you know, it might be good for us to just kind of as individually look at these and put a plus by any of them that you've already used as a teacher. Just any one of them that you've already used. Just go quickly down the list and just put a plus beside them. And I don't expect you to have used all of them. Just put a plus beside the ones that you've used. And so now if you could get with the person sitting next to you, together, I'd like for you to put a star beside 3 of them that you would commit to using in your lessons. So talk to your shoulder partner, these two, you two and you two, and on your lesson that you're going to do on wants and needs, how would you use, which of these strategies within the strategy would you use to tier that lesson on wants and needs for your 2nd grade students? What would be the best way to tier a lesson for wants and needs?
Now, like the and/or piece here, pacing those.
Other than the other ones. They're meant to be a sort of.
Right. Yes, that's perfect.
So let's share out what 3 did y'all come up with that you would like to use?
Well, interestingly, we both have never used the no questions after the initial introduction, so we want to attempt to do that within our tiering. And in addition to that, we agreed on which other 2?
The real world application and taking place over an extended period of time and or has many steps and or has rapid pace.
Okay, depending on what it is that you're doing. Okay, so I like the first thing you said, we've never done this, but we're interested in trying it. Because that's what this is all about, is taking that risk, trying something new you've never tried before. And, we're going to let our principal know that we're trying something new, and, if they come in and they see it and we're having to monitor and adjust it, just be aware, that we're trying to do better for all our kids by trying something different. So I like that you we're safe enough to say that. So this is kind of the beginning. This is going to get you out the door to start planning. So, and you're not tied to the 3 we just talked about. If you get into the lesson and you say, I think I want to do something else, the nice thing is you have a list, because that's where the hard part is. And within that list, she gives us great resources to go to with a link right there. Just open it up and use them. So I think that will be real helpful as we continue to create those lessons. And when we come back, we'll debrief and see how it goes. All right, so now we know what we're going to do. I think the most important thing is we've got to figure out what outcomes we expect from our students. So this is going to be a little more independent because, well, y'all are working together, y'all are working together, y'all are working together. Their outcomes might be different than yours or yours. So what student outcomes do you want to have? And that is question number 3 on your dashboard. So if you'll go to question number 3, and what student outcomes do you expect by tiering this lesson?
And pairs of.
Yeah, well, you can do it together in your pair. I mean, I'm thinking you would want to have the same outcome.
Right.
So you can talk about it. Okay. So you can stop now. So you would fill this in, and you'd have the conversation with whoever you were planning with, or even if you were planning by yourself, you would ask yourself, what do I want the student outcome to be? Because that's ultimately where we're heading. We have to know where we're going, where we're going to end up. So the last thing that we have to think about is, how are we going to assess our students on each tier? Because you've got at least three tiers in your group. So how are you going to assess those tiers? What are you going to use? What instrument are you going to use? So talk about that. We can talk about that as a whole group. Just ideas of how we could assess that lesson on wants and needs based on our tiers. So for everybody else, we want to make sure that we're evaluating our GT students at the level we're teaching them. So if we're teaching them at application level or evaluation level, we want to make sure the assessment matches how we're teaching them. Because we don't want to teach them at the evaluation level and assess them at the identification level. So keep that in mind. I mean, personally, I think the assessment piece is the hardest piece. I mean, and you may have to look at other resources and, Google. So, and I think that she has some good ideas in her training and some good resources. If you go to the Ian Bird's website, Birdseed, he has a lot of great ideas in there as far as evaluation. So keep that in mind. And I think that might be the hardest piece, is to get that evaluation piece. So that's question number 4 on your list of questions. So if you will fill that out, what you will, how you will evaluate the student outcome for each tiered lesson and level. And once you finish that, you can just hit save, and you're going to save it. And don't change it, because at our next meeting, we want to look at what we did. So don't think, oh, that didn't work, I need to go back and change my answer. Don't do that, because that's part of the learning process, is for us to look back at what we did and see if we made good choices, or if we needed more resources, or if we needed to go find some extra help or look at another course or whatever. So just don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what you've done. So now we have completed all 6 questions, and you have come up with a topic that you're going to use to create a lesson. You've determined what strategies you're going to use, and you have thought about the outcomes and the evaluation of that course or that lesson. So between now and our next meeting, you need to completely develop the course at all 3 levels, or your tiered levels, however many you're going to have, and do it. And then come back and be ready to share with anecdotal notes of what worked, what didn't work, what adjustments, or a different group, or classroom management problems that occurred during the process, so that we can continue to seek out more information so that we can make this work. Okay, so we need to pick a date for our next meeting. So how long do you think you need? 2 weeks? Is that plenty? 2 to 3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks might be good.
Okay.
Just because that gives us a time for a whole lesson cycle.
Yeah, and
Assessment cycle.
yeah, and things happen. You know, assemblies, fire drills, all that good stuff. So you said it would take about 3 weeks. You'd like to have 3 weeks to go through the cycle and plan and everything and teach it. So 3 weeks from today, at 4 o'clock in this room, we'll have our meeting. So if you will put that under question number 5, 3 weeks from today is October 15th at 4 o'clock in room 400. And I will be sending you an invite to remind you.
So should we make sure that we bring our lesson plans or anything like that with us?
I would think it would be good if you brought your artifacts. I don't necessarily think you can share your lesson plans with each other, but I think the artifacts are more important, you know, or the outcomes and maybe the evaluation and the thought process that you went through, because it's going to be a little messy at first. And, you know, I think it's important that we think about the thought process that we went through, because that's going to make it easier the second time, you know. So, yes, bring any artifacts or anecdotal notes or anything you think that would be helpful as we think about doing another tiered lesson. Okay? Okay, so we've finished gone through all our questions and talked about the process. We know what we need to include. We know what our focus is and how we're going to do our lesson. And we want to use our state standards to do that. And we have about 30 minutes left in our time together. So what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and get started. You have about 30 minutes to start planning that lesson and looking at how you're going to do it as a tiered lesson, starting with that top group and then moving down from there. So this is your time. You know, use it to get started, and then we'll wrap it up in about 30 minutes, okay? Okay, everybody, can I get your attention back together? I hope that you've had a good opportunity to really dig into what you're going to be working on. How'd you do? Did you get very far? What were some of the things that you came up against when you really started working on the lesson?
So we had difficulty with the assessment piece. We're still struggling with making sure that we're assessing at the level of application for the highest learner and moving it through. So we need a little bit more time to work through that.
Okay, but you got your activities plan?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, good. Okay, well, thanks again for coming together, and I felt like it was very beneficial, and I feel like that, you know, it kind of gives you that breath of fresh air that you have something to get out there and go with. So thanks again, and I will see you in 3 weeks, and I can't wait to see what you've done. Thanks.
Well, I hope this video gave you a really good idea of what the first follow-up session of the PD2Practice system looks like. Now, if you want more information or like an overview of our library and how the PD2Practice system helps to ensure these teachers are using what they're learning into the classroom, in the description below, you will find a link to the PD2Practice overview. In the description, we've also included a link to our website in case you wanted to learn more about our online training and also the PD2Practice system. Now, if you want to speak to somebody, one of our specialists, to help you determine how to best apply these things into your campus or your district, well, give us a call. That information is also included in the description. Lastly, we're going to be posting more videos to help you get the most out of our online training and the PD2Practice system. To get notified when we post those videos, be sure to subscribe and click the bell, and you will receive notifications when those videos go up.